I didn't think it could be done. I I did not think it could be done so well, especially by something like Amazon. Fuck Amazon, by the way. Uh, but the first episode of Fallout, it's peak. I'm afraid it is so good. It is so good. I've been a fan of the Fallout franchise for many years, many years. I spent a lot of my uh, early teens and middle teens just obsessing over the games. I remember whenever Fallout 4 was announced. I remember whenever people were analyzing it and the trailer and everything and were like breaking it down. I remember the Young Yeah uh, videos on it. Um, I remember how hyped I was when it first released. I watched an entire playthrough of it. I man, I love Fallout. I really do. It is one of my favorite pieces of fiction out there. Um, and I'm happy to say that they really, so far, with the first episode, have brought that to life. Genuinely, they brought that to life. Um, it keeps the themes of Fallout alive. It doesn't feel like it's been MCUified, if that makes any sense. It feels like it takes itself seriously enough while also being its own thing and also having things that fans of Fallout will just adore, and it's not just fan service. There is a lot of that though. There is very much a lot of that. It's pretty sneaky in the way that it does it too. It doesn't play to the audience, right? Where something big happens and like the thing happens and it freezes and lets you right. It goes still keeps going and it lets you appreciate it in passing. Um, I wanna start from the very beginning of the episode. Love the way the vault looks. Oh my god. I love the way the vault looks. I love the way that the vault suits look. I love the even more detailing on the vault suits than we have gotten in things like 76 and Fallout 4 and even recent official artwork. I like the idea. One of my favorite things whenever something is brought into live action is that you add another layer of realism to it that keeps the fidelity of moving from one medium to another. Whether that be something like uh recently the One Piece live action, right? The One Piece live action was really good at that. It took very simple designs and made them feel like they were real pieces of clothing while also kind of looking a bit like a little bit more fantastical, right? A little too perfect. But Fallout does the same thing. It takes the jumpsuit, it takes a lot of the artwork from the very early games, which, by the way, I've played. I've played all of the original top-down games, and then I played New Vegas. I've not played 3. I know some people consider that a sin. I played 76 and I played 4. Um, so I've seen a lot of the depictions of the vault suit, and honestly, this one in the show is one of my favorites because I like the little thing, the little pin almost on the collar of the gold 33. I think that's really cool. Um, I love how weird the vault dwellers are. They're so weird. The way that they talk and everything, the way that they focus on like breeding and keeping America alive, it's perfect. It is such a critique of those things because that's what Fallout is about. It is about being a critique of the world that it's based around and America and the global politics of the world. That's the point of Fallout, and many people miss that. And I love that it keeps that intact. That was one of the biggest things that I was worried about was that they might still do this, they very well might do this, but the way that they really blatantly set it out gives me hope that it keeps that intact throughout. One of the reasons I've always been so afraid of a mega corporation adapting it and so on is that they want to whitewash that. They want to make that palatable for as many audiences as possible and to be not as controversial as it would be, such as if you did show something like a member in power armor of the US Army executing a Canadian citizen on the streets after annexing Canada, having that completely be there, and then everybody cheering in the background for annexing Canada, like in the Fallout lore, that would cause a lot of people to come up in arms and be like, you're saying, or like, and I'm glad that it's keeping that intact so far. I love the set design. I was like, whenever I first saw the like open field of where the crops are, I was like, huh, did they just make a really big fucking room? That was what part of me said. I was like, did they just make a really big room? But no, they didn't. They made it retro futuristic and just had a projector doing that. And the projector comes in really cool with later visuals. I loved the little interactions and just how weird the vault dwellers are, right? And immediately I kind of suspected that the other vault was maybe going to be raiders because the guy had scars. I was like, oh, did this guy go to the surface or whatever? And then gunshots happened, and I was like, oh, it's raiders. Oh my god, that's such an interesting idea. I I've read a lot of like the Fallout lore. Oxford, some of the best videos out there for Fallout lore, all that. And Shoddycast, I remember they did a huge thing on it a long time ago. That was how I got a lot of lore. I just listened to it in the background, and I don't remember if that was something that had happened. Usually it was just brazen raiding. It wasn't like undercover sort of stuff, which is what these raiders did. And then they left. And then left the vault as they were. And I thought that was very interesting. I do wonder what the experiment Vault-Tec was trying to do with 33. Obviously, 33 isn't already a vault, because I'm pretty sure I would have heard something about that by now. And I wonder if potentially the experiment was having it connected near a seaside, or so on, because sometimes vaults always had an experiment going on, but sometimes they were almost indistinguishable from being completely normal. And the normalcy of this one could have just been the fact that they were maybe connected to another vault and like a system of vaults, or they were just on the seacoast, or so on, and everything like that. Whether it being an FEV experiment and so on. Other than that, seeing the Brotherhood of Steel is awesome. It really, really is. Oh my god. Whenever they showed up, I was like... I sat there and I was just like, whoa. Because the way the power armor looks in this show is so good. It carries this weight. They feel heavy. They feel this sense of aura and presence to them that I absolutely love. And the way they just tower over people. It's the way that I feel most power armor should be in anything. Kind of like how in the Halo trailers and cinematics, you see Chief just towering above people. Or like how you see in 40K, just Space Marines and Astartes just towering over people. And that's the way that you should do power armor. I love the way that the background brothers were like basically geeking out over it. They're like, oh, what model is that? What model is that? And what was his name? His name's not Titus. Oh, Maximus. He's like, it's a T80, and that's what all the Fallout fans were saying. They're like, oh, it's T80. Like, oh, it's so cool. I love the way that Pit Boys are shown in this as well. I want to mention that. I love it. Um, I want to mention that there was apparently controversy over the fact that there is a trans brother in the Brotherhood of Steel, which, who gives a fuck? Grow up, Snowflake. Come on. Like, it does not matter. Like, no matter what way you want to explain it, of whether the Brotherhood is being inclusive or they're just accepting anyone that wants to be a brother to be a brother, either way works. It doesn't matter. I really do enjoy the way that they're keeping intact, because the Brotherhood of Steel is one of my favorite factions in Fallout. They are sometimes, specifically in the Fallout 4, like, they seem like almost the best option for the Wasteland. And then other times they seem just as morally gray and reprehensible as every other one, right? And one of my favorite parts about the Brotherhood is their pseudo religious stuff going on. Like, to them, it's a religion, but I really do like how they took influences and put that in, because they are going with knights and so on. They're called knights, they're called squires and so on. And obviously that's a reflection of medieval Christian and so on beliefs and sacraments and so on. And I remember I saw someone on Twitter get all mad going, oh, the Brotherhood of Steel isn't Christian. Like, no shit, they're not. Of course they're not. They're their own religious thing. But you can take religious motifs of incense burners and all this other stuff to allude to that, or to take influence and visual influence and still have it be its own thing. That's usually how making fictional religions work. You take common things, twist it, and make it its own new thing. Um, I really enjoyed that. I loved how the ritual of the branding of new squires looks like another 40K reference. It looks like the like whenever Astartes are being adorned with their armor with all the cherubs around them, right? And then the incense burners of the technomancers, right? Uh the Mechanicus, right? And I thought that looked really cool. There's then the ghoul, which I think there's a lot of people that are like, oh, he's not ugly enough. Of course, people are going to say that. People hate the way that Fallout 4's ghouls look whenever they aren't feral. Some people hate the way the original ghouls look. I think they can all coexist. It kind of just depends. It like there is a very clear layer of supernatural kind of to the Fallout world, and having it be that some people are affected by radiation that lets them live but be all gold and mangled is fine. Then you also get, you know, this this ghoul that's very much smoother skinned and more Fallout 4 and almost a bit more prettier, right? And I mean, makes sense. There have been a lot of people that have been crushing on the Captain Ghoul for a long time. So, one of my favorite parts about about this show is I'm going back to the Vault Dwellers, because going in order of of the the first episode is the fact that they just kind of try and go back to normal. Like, shit happens. All right, clean it on up, put up some new posters and so on. And there's the pregnant woman who had the fork in her eye. Oh man, I want to do a side tangent. I love the action in this movie. Not in this movie. It's like a movie, but in the show so far. The one raider that took the Type 90 or Type 100 and put in the guy's mouth and leaned him against the wall, pushed the trigger, and then started shooting out of his skull. Oh my god, that was so cool. And then the way that Lucy smashed the blender cup, and then and then the way the guy was like all mauled, and oh my god, it's so cool. And then because it keeps the weird funny, almost humor of Fallout, while also keeping almost in line with earlier entries of being a little bit more darker, grittier, serious, kind of action packed. But even for those that are always like to say that, oh, original Fallout wasn't so funny, it was more serious. It's always been a funny game. It's always been almost parody. That's the point. Um, that's why you can come across and even have the Wilds of the Wasteland thing happening as far back as the first Fallout game. That's why you can find the fucking TARDIS out in the wasteland. That's why you can find these funny like instances of dialogue. It's a crazy wild world that is both taken seriously while also having the weirdest fucking shit going on. Um and I love that. I excuse me. I love that about this show, that it keeps that intact. Yes, part of me would love to see a proper adaptation of those original games, of where it's a little bit more grittier, but Fallout's identity has been shaped into something new over time, and this plays both perfectly, I feel. It plays it as best as it can, and one of my favorite things about this show is that it keeps the Vault Dwellers being these like weird fishes out of water, having them just be kind of weird. Like they're like the guy that's about to get killed being like, "Step back, sir, or I will have to use physical force." Like, yeah, that's funny, but it's not forced because that's how the Vault Dwellers are taught. They are taught to be that weird. They are taught to be these weirdly polite people that have no social understanding beyond politeness and what is palatable. So whenever they're faced with something like violence, they're like, they are extremely well trained. They know how to kill. It is explained like they all go through rifle training and everything like that. They are militarized, but they don't know how to use it because it's been so long since they've had to use it. So whenever it does happen, they know how to shoot, but it's so weird, weirdly effective. You get moments like that, and I love that. Moving forward, I love that the comedy of the show is not MCUified. There was a thing that a lot of people were worried about, that it was going to have a lot of quirky dialogue. There was going to be a lot of, "Oh, that sounded better in my head. He's right behind me, isn't he?" Moments, and I'm glad to say in the first episode that's not there. A lot of the funniness comes from the Vault Dwellers themselves and just kind of the wackiness of the world, right? And I can guarantee moving forward there's going to be weird dialogue because it's Fallout. Fallout always has weird dialogue because you either have feral people that just don't know like social norms, and then there are just people that talk like all they ever know is how to be polite, like the most polite people ever, and those cause really funny interactions and funny dialogue. Um, and then you get really serious dialogue with the Brotherhood of Steel and so on. I like how it's almost playing into the idea of multiple side quests throughout the entire episode. Uh, like how you have the side quest of the Brotherhood of Steel, then you have the Ghoul side quest, and then you have the Vault Dweller side quest or main quest, right? And it plays really perfectly into so far the pacing of the show, and I really like that. Um, but yeah, the dialogue doesn't feel too quirky or anything like that. It feels Fallout, and I really like that. Um, like how the Ghoul does this really badass one-liner, and he finishes his one-liner, and it just ends. He finishes the one-liner, and it's allowed to be cool. It's allowed to have that serious moment and not be interrupted by comedy. I love that. I love that. Um, my hopes for the show, I want more cool action scenes. I want at least one VATS scene, and I want I want Lucy to be picking up trash everywhere. Also Caps. I obviously want Caps to be mentioned and explained and so on. Maybe a funny little dialogue like, "Caps? Oh, that's weird." And then like maybe the Ghoul or someone's like, "What are you talking about?" "Yeah, it's Caps. That's our money." Like, it's not played off like as a joke. It's like, what? What do you expect us to use? Paper? This is metal. um, because I've watched a lot of live action projects for Fallout in the past. I mean, one of my favorite ones is the Nuka Cola project by I don't remember their name. Very very famous, the Nuka Cola miniseries. I loved it. Um, it really brought to life my love for live action Fallout and hoping that it could be accomplished properly um, in a mainstream form sometime in the future. And so far, I feel that that's been brought to fruition. Um, but yeah, those are my little tiny things that I hope to see because I just think it'd be funny. Um, like I like how it's now canon that stim packs just work immediately. It You jab it in, and then you wait a second, and then you're fine. You're able to walk around shooting people all you want. There are going to obviously be people that are like, "Oh, the woman is too badass." Ugh. Ugh. But like, of course she is. She was taught, and it's explained that she knows how to shoot, she knows how to fight, and everything. And even then, she still gets overpowered, and she just has to learn and so on from here. I enjoy that. I want to know what her name is going to be, her title. Every Vault Dweller protagonist has a title: the Lone Wanderer, the Survivor, the Courier, and so on. Um, and I saw one, a lot of them were misogynistic, but there was one that did sound really cool. And somebody said, the Tourist. I thought that sounded really, really cool because it does feel like that's how this is going. It feels like um, Lucy is going out into the wasteland as like an explorer to find her dad, and she is basically like a tourist. She is a fish out of water, and I think that if that's what her title becomes, that would be awesome. I'm trying to think of anything else that I have to say. uh oh yeah, the trailer I want to mention, by the way, the whole thing of the power armor being like Iron Man. They've always been able to do that. That's why you can like fucking they drop from ships, is because they have thrusters that allow them to stop and slow down and then make bigger movements and maneuvering. The thing of the thing coming up, the helmet, makes sense. The entire back of the fucking suit opens up like that. So the front opening up for ease of access makes sense. We've seen the fact that the helmet can come off. So it makes sense that almost like real world helmets, where there's the visor can be lifted up, that the helmet can then be taken up, that a more advanced application of that with power armor is the fact you can take off the entire helmet and then reattach it and then also open up the top just for quick ease of access instead of taking off the entire thing. It makes sense. It's These aren't even nitpicks. They're just stupid fucking things that make sense when you think about it for longer than 2 seconds. Other than that, I look forward to the rest of it. I'm going to get back to watching the rest of it, and I will be making episodes or reviews for each episode because it is very long. But other than that, thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed, leave a like down below and let me know your thoughts on Fallout. Have you seen it? How deep have you gotten into it? Do you love the Fallout franchise? What are your gripes with the show, if you have any so far? If they're reasonable, please let me know. If they're just stupid, ugh. But other than that, leave a like, all that other stuff. I have a cash app if you want to support me. It's down in the description. But as always, I will see you guys in the next video. Bye-bye.